Mr. Makois, I was so excited for this. I look forward to it because you have been so interested in what's going on in South Korea.
Thank you so much for having me, Michael, and thank you all for inviting me. It is such a pleasure to be here with you. It's such an honor to meet Michael. We know each other on X,
yes.
And to see him in person is lovely. To see Mr. Sung Won Kim has been nice from Ground C.
Yeah, over there.
I'm looking for him. I don't see him. I know he's here, and so many other people, Johnny Park and the others. Thank you so much for giving me some time.
Yeah. And on X, 11 hours ago, you put out something. Here it says, dangerous move by the new South Korean government to dilute UN sanctions against North Korea. It's odd that the Unification Ministry would partner with an indicted smuggler in this venture. I think you retweeted that, right?
I did.
Yeah.
Somebody tweeted about that, and when I saw it, I thought this is shocking that a sitting government, an allied government, and a member in good standing of the United Nations would violate UN sanctions and UN policy against North Korea and start purchasing, bartering. They said, oh, it's not breaking sanctions because we're paying for it with sugar. Like that matters. It's still breaking sanctions. It's still giving aid and comfort to a communist regime, and it's wrong. It should not be done. And the fact that the person they used to arrange it was somebody who has been indicted for smuggling tells you that they knew it was criminal activity, and it has to be condemned, and it has to be pointed out, and we cannot ignore it.
Gordon Chang also tweeted that Lee Jae-myung might also push for releasing sanctions against Iran. Did you check out that?
I did not see that, but I think Gordon Chang, I hope that he is the next ambassador, next American ambassador, that either he or Morse Tan are the next ambassador to South Korea. Nobody but Gordon Chang knows the politics and history and culture of East Asia. Nobody knows it like Gordon. And he understands the Marxist regime in China. He understands the tentacles they have throughout the world. And he understands the aims and goals of this new government in South Korea.
So President Trump came back, our 47th president, on January 20th, and it's already almost 9 months. How come South Korea still have a Biden holdover named Joseph Yoon there? Why isn't President Trump expediting the process of appointing ambassador for South Korea?
I will return to this theme over and over, the theme of the answer that I'm about to give. President Trump is one man, and he's a great man, and he is standing up for everybody, for American families, American Christians, American Jews, American workers, Americans of every background, but he's just one person. And the people in the House of Representatives and the U.S. Senate, some of them are not fully behind him. Even some that are members of the Republican Party are not fully behind him. They finally, just this week, took actions to start confirming some of the president's appointees. And while there was that long backlog of hundreds of appointees, there was no sense in making a new appointment. But as a former diplomat myself, I was an American career diplomat for most of my career. I find it abhorrent that we still have a Biden holdover appointed as the ambassador. Ambassadors should be relieved of duty. They should tender their resignations on the 20th of January. They should be relieved within a month or two. Generally, they're allowed to stay until maybe April or May to finish up family business. If they have kids in school, let their kids finish school. But they should have been out months ago. And every ambassador should be a Trump ambassador, whether it's career or political. They all should be appointed under this administration, and they haven't been.
So, Mr. Marquez, your top two candidates are Gordon Chang and Morse Tan.
Or Morse Tan.
What I understand is Lee Jae-myung government, admin, Korean government has to also accept the ambassador as well. So do you think that Lee Jae-myung would gladly accept Morris Tan or Gordon Chang?
I dare him to defy the will of the President of the United States. I do not think he would dare to defy President Trump. If President Trump names one of those gentlemen, I do not think that Lee Jae-myung would defy him. Thank you. It's true that according to diplomatic protocol, the receiving government must accept the nomination. It is rare that they would reject an American appointee. It has happened, but it's rare.
That would be awesome.
Wouldn't it? Wouldn't it? Can we pray for that?
The news cycle would go crazy in South Korea. I did hear some other candidates as well. For instance, General Eric Wint and also former Congresswoman Michelle Park Steele. Are they still in the running?
I don't know. Those two that I mentioned are my personal favorites, and I know that they definitely are in the mix. Mm-hmm. They're definitely in the top tier. Okay. I don't know who else is in the running. Honestly, I haven't asked, but so maybe they are. I've heard a couple of other names, but I probably shouldn't say them. Okay. Everybody knows about Gordon and Morse.
Yeah. So how would it play out if President Trump chooses Gordon Chang or Morris Tan? How do you think it's going to play out with South Korea politics?
Oh, I think he would nominate them. I do think that the administration of Lee Jae-myung would accept them, and then there would be a period of real awkward back and forth there. Neither Morris nor Gordon will back down. And I've always said, you know, when I talk about diplomacy, people think of diplomats as people who are soft-spoken and who can say something nice to you and smooth over troubled waters. And there's an old joke about diplomats. They say a diplomat is a person who can tell you, excuse my language, tell you to go to hell in such a way that you look forward to the trip. The joke is funny, but it isn't true. That's not a good diplomat. That's a smooth talker. A good diplomat is a clear talker. A good diplomat speaks clearly and says, I would like to prevent more trouble between your country and ours. If you want trouble, continue in the path that you're on. If you want to avoid trouble, change your path. Diplomacy is part of a whole spectrum of options open to a head of state. And they range all the way from doing nothing at all or making a strong statement from a public pulpit to all-out war. And in between, there are all kinds of options. Diplomacy is one of them. Trade sanctions are another. Other obstacles to good relations are all in there. So I would imagine that were either of those two appointed ambassador, they would continue saying the things that they say. They would say them clearly, and there would be some friction initially between them and the government, and they would have to work that out. And I think that there would be a way of working that out.
Yeah, I believe the time has changed. I mean, President Trump, first, we had to adjust ourselves too because his rhetoric wasn't that diplomatic that much, and I think, right? Is it an understatement? So I think things changed, and the time has changed. It's now we're fighting against CCP and communism, so I think the climate has really changed, and everybody knows it, and I think probably diplomats also would follow suit of whatever President Trump, how he wants to play out his foreign policy.
I'll tell you a story about diplomats. I won't name the country. It's a country I know of where the person in charge, like what we call the chargé d'affaires, called everybody in the embassy to a meeting and said to them, we have a new president. All of these people were career diplomats. The person speaking is a career diplomat. And I happen to know that the chargé d'affaires in this embassy really did not like President Trump. It was really anti-Trump. It was so bad that it was disrupting personal family relations because this diplomat did not like President Trump. But the diplomat sat everybody down and said, we are professional diplomats. When we accepted this calling, we promised that we would support and defend the foreign policy of the United States, no matter who was president. Every one of you will support and actively defend and actively carry out President Trump's foreign policy. If you cannot do that, tell me now. I will help you find another assignment. I will not have you in my embassy. I will not hurt your career. I will be kind to you, but I will help you find another assignment. If you don't tell me now, then I will destroy your career if you stay and you undermine the policy. I hope every ambassador, every chargé d'affaires, every DCM in every American embassy had that same talk. That's how it ought to be.
So no more Rex Tillerson, no more Jim Mattis, no more John Bolton?
No, and you know, here's the trouble. I'll tell you a dirty little secret about the State Department. The State Department officers are the best in the world at undermining their own president. It's unusual for this person that I was speaking about to have done what they did. When Rex Tillerson was Secretary of State, he was like a head cut off at the neck, and he was in a box, and he would talk, and the president would talk to him, and he would talk to foreign leaders. But everybody from the neck down took their orders from the Undersecretary for Political Affairs. They didn't care what the Secretary of State said. No more of that. That's over. They got away with that in the first Trump administration because Trump came in with people that did not know how Washington works. It's almost a blessing that the 2020 election was stolen from him because he had 4 years in the wilderness to stop and think about how it was done and about what had gone wrong with his first administration. And he came in this time with a full understanding of how Washington works. And I tell you, you have not seen the extent of his reorganization yet. I think we had a big reorganization initially. I expect we will have another one when after the midterms. I expect that the Republicans will do very well in the midterms, unlike the historical
cycle.
Yeah.
Usually, if you have the presidency in the midterm, you lose to the other side.
Right. I don't think that will happen this time. I think that the American voters will double down, but only if we have truly fair elections, only if we have truly honest elections. If we do, then you'll see the majority in the House and majority in the Senate increase, and you'll see those senators and those members of Congress, those Republicans who are secretly undermining the president, they'll fall into line because they'll see they're on the wrong side of the American voters. That's what I expect.
Your knowledge is so deep that I just want to, two questions just popped up inside my brain.
Please.
The first one is, do you still think there are those deep staters in these departments still acting wild? Like I think Laura Loomer still mentioned, she talks about it all the time.
100% there are still deep staters. Let me tell you what the deep staters are. When I was a young diplomat, the most important person that I ever talked to face was an office director. He was a GS-15, sometimes it was a Senior Foreign Service 1, the equivalent of a colonel in the Army or a captain in the Navy, or maybe a one-star general. And I almost never saw him. He was too important for me. My job was to do what my boss told me. And my boss was 3 or 4 levels down from this office director. Well, that office director is the lowest person that any political appointee ever speaks to, and they almost never speak to them. The office director responds to somebody who is an area director or a deputy assistant secretary, and those people are a deputy assistant secretary is 2 levels down or 1 level down from Senate confirmation. An assistant secretary is when you start to get confirmed. Most political appointees right now, President Trump has appointed a few assistant secretaries. Most of the assistant secretaries are still the people who were there, who were appointed by Biden, or who were appointed by Obama, or who were appointed by deep staters during Trump's first term, where nobody from Trump's true administration knew anything about it, because the Democrats are very good at appointing their people to permanent positions, and their people are very good at burrowing in, digging in, and staying there. And they know all they have to do is last for 4 years of a Republican administration, and boom, back they are again. And all of the little people that are carrying out the orders are taking their orders from someone who takes their orders from someone who was appointed by Biden, Obama, or even Clinton. That's how far back they go. So yes, they're still there.
I mean, the appointees seem to be always a problem. They have this arrogance, because I read John Bolton's book, The White House Memoir, and when I read that book, what astonished me the most was how could an individual who was appointed by President Trump be so arrogant that he was looking down on whatever President Trump was doing, and it's just mind-boggling.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a sensitive topic for me because I like John Bolton.
Oh, you do? Okay.
I like him. He's a friend. He was always I'm a hardcore anti-communist. John Bolton is a hardcore anti-communist. However, I agree that he lost his way when he was National Security Advisor. Sometimes, you read this in old stories that the king will appoint a steward to be in charge of things, and then the king leaves the country, and the steward forgets that he's only a steward, that he's not the king. And you see that in real people. And I think that happened with my friend John.
I really agree with what you said, and I think the media has a lot to do with it. The media portrayed President Trump like a buffoon, and I think many characters in the White House probably thought of him that way, but now I think they have hopefully they learned their lesson.
I think now they have learned their lesson, but in the first term, it looked to people, they believed what they read in the New York Times. They believed what they read in the Washington Post, and they believed what they heard at cocktail parties in Georgetown. And you would go to one of these gatherings, and people would look at you and say, you really like Trump? How could you?
I love him.
And I would be the only guy in the room, and suddenly there'd be 30 people who all went to Georgetown and who all went to Harvard and who all went to these places, talking. And I would simply say, you don't know the man. You don't know the man. May I tell a story?
Yeah, please.
So the first time I met Donald Trump was when I was working on another presidential campaign, and I had raised a lot of money.
Almost 1 million.
You know that?
I read it. Correct. I mean, if I have to be specific, 18,000 something.
$951,000. And I was invited to a dinner. It was about twice the size of the attendance here, maybe 3 times the size. It was on the deck of an aircraft carrier, and there were so many people in the room who were so much more important than I am and than I was. But my friends knew I'd worked very hard to raise this money. And so the number 1 table in the room was right here in the center, right in front of the podium. The number 2 table in the room was right next to it. But every table has 2 bad seats, the ones who have their backs to the podium. And so my friends put me and my wife in the 2 bad seats at the second best table in the room. Well, right behind me, the back of my chair was touching the back of the chair of a lady named Melania Trump. The back of my wife's chair was touching the back of Donald Trump's chair. And so we sat there. There were 10 people at each table, and there was so much noise. We couldn't hear the people at our own table, but we could hear Donald Trump. And we heard every word he said, and Melania didn't talk much. But the only time Donald Trump spoke during that whole meeting, that whole dinner of 90 minutes, It was to ask other people at his table what they think about something. What do you do for a living? Tell me more about it. Well, if you do that, what do you think about this policy? It was like he was a graduate student and these were his instructors. And every person at the table, he was like a sponge, soaking in information. And that is the true Donald Trump. That's the Donald Trump that has spent 40 years thinking about policy and 40 years coming up with his policy platform, because he has been talking to regular Americans, and by the way, it included the waiter as well. And when he said last year, when he came out and said, no tax on tips, and he said, I got that idea from a waitress in Las Vegas. I asked her, if you could do anything, what would you, if I win, what would you want me to do as president? She said, stop taxing my tips. And he said, that's a brilliant idea. He literally got it because he listened to the waitress who was just making by. She had 2 or 3 kids, single mom, trying to get by, trying to keep putting herself through college and working as a waitress with these kids. And he said, no tax on tips. That's a great idea. That's Donald Trump. And for the people of Washington who went to elite schools, who were trust fund babies, who never had to pay anything, never had to work to get anything in their lives, their idea of supporting themselves is that they use part of their allowance to buy coffee at Starbucks or to go on a ski vacation in Vail. That's their idea of, having something hurt the pocketbook. They have no idea what it's like for normal people to say, am I going to pay the electric bill this month, or am I going to pay for food? Which one am I going to do? And maybe if I pay half of the electric bill, they'll keep my electricity on. So many people understand that, but nobody in Washington, nobody who makes Washington policy does. But Donald Trump does, because he spent 40 plus years talking, even when he was a playboy in the 1980s, and he was famous for being a playboy, even then he was talking to people and listening to them. You can't build hotels and restaurants and entertainment venues, especially not in New York City, without dealing with some hardcore, gritty people who are based in reality, and he is based in reality.
I think in his book, Art of the Deal, President Trump said that he likes to talk with the regular folks, like the taxi drivers, the waiters, the waitresses, and I think that really made him connect with the regular folks.
Exactly.
Yeah, and I think the no tax on tips were so good that Kamala copied it, and she put it on her election page.
Nobody fell for that.
Yeah. So the news cycle changes every day, and today one of the biggest news is the visa, H-1B, that Trump wants to raise the fees by 100 times, and I think it took Korea by surprise. It's the headlines all over the place in South Korea as well. And like European corporations, they're calling an emergency and bringing back all their employees as well, who's working abroad. What's your thought on this?
President Trump has said from the beginning, make America great and put America first. And he sees the H-1B visa program as a valuable program to bring people here who truly cannot be found here. But what he's saying is, you know what? This has been abused, especially by the tech industry, by Silicon Valley. So many people in Silicon Valley were being paid $150,000, $200,000 a year, and suddenly they were told, oh, here's somebody coming from India, and you need to train him how to do your job. And after 3 months of training, somebody from India is hired, and the person making $150,000 or $200,000 is said, oh, we don't need you anymore because this person will work for $60,000 a year, and we don't have to pay you $150 or $180 anymore. That's what globalization has meant in practice. And what President Trump is saying is to these companies, if you truly need somebody that can't be found in America already, whether they are ethnically Indian or Korean or Chinese or Bolivian or whatever. If you truly can't find somebody, yes, we will approve a visa, but you have to pay $100,000 for it. He wants the CEOs and the HR people to stop and think very carefully before they say, I can't find anybody. He's saying, look a little bit harder, because I think there's somebody that lives probably right in your hometown that could do this job very well. You just have to pay him what you would pay an American. And honestly, you know, I lived in the Middle East for a long time, and in the GCC countries, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Bahrain, Qatar, in those countries, they hire people from all over the world. And you know what your salary level depends on? It depends on your ethnicity and your passport. If you are a white American and you are an engineer, you get paid $300,000 a year. If you are an American who is a naturalized citizen, you get paid slightly less than that, because they'll make an average between what you could make in your country of ethnic origin and what you make in America. If you're Swiss or British, you make about the same as an American. But if you're Korean, you might make $90,000 a year. You might make $120,000 a year. You won't make 200 or 300. If you're from India, even if you went to I forget their top university, I think it's also called MIT, but the MIT of India, even if you were in the top 0.1% of graduates of a country of 1.5 billion people, you might make $70,000 a year because you're from India. It's unfair, and that's what Silicon Valley has been doing right here in America, abusing the H-1 visa system, the H-1B visa system. And President Trump is saying, no more. You bring somebody from overseas, you, Mr. Company, have to pay an extra $100,000. He's just trying to level the field for people who are Americans, whether they're white, black, ethnic, non-ethnic, came over on the Mayflower or were naturalized last week. They're Americans, and he wants to give the jobs to those Americans.
So, Mr. Marcois, you do know that this issue is dividing the MAGA base. Mm-hmm. Some have been very against it, vocally against it. I think Elon Musk, Vivek Ramaswamy, and I think even probably Vice President J.D. Vance too, to a certain extent. And they're saying that what Vivek has been saying is many of the American students here, their like math skill is not as good as foreigners, like for instance, like India or some Asian nations. What say you on that?
I think he's probably right. The people in the Asian nations have worked a lot harder. American students are famous for being a little bit lazy. I mean, let's be honest, we know.
That's what they said too.
Yeah. And all President Trump is saying is, great, pay an extra $100,000 per person and you can hire as many of them as you want. But if you're doing it just so that you can pay them less money, just know that it's going to cost you an extra $100,000. If they really want the best people, let them bring the best people and pay what they would pay somebody, the best person from here. There are, believe it or not, there are some American students who are not lazy and who do work hard and who are capable of it, but the people have to be told, keep looking, make sure you find them.
Because I think the education system has been completely collapsed here. Like the public schools, if you look at the math, what they're teaching, it doesn't even seem like math. And what I understand is even Harvard, probably one of the most prestigious schools out there, they're now teaching like remedial math because the students are not catching up. So many critics have been doubting unless America completely have an overhaul of their education system, the public or the private, from K-12, that it's going to take a long time for them to transition.
You bet. Well, let me defend the American university system a little bit. I will say that the graduates come out very experienced in puppetry and in diversity, equity, and what does the I stand for? Inclusion. Inclusivity. They're very competent in declaring themselves victims of one way or another. So what I'm saying is, yes, you're right. The educational system has failed, but there are still a lot of people. Most of them are Asian Americans.
It is true. Yeah,
it's true.
They're winning all the contests. And
it's true. I mean, it's look at the lawsuit that some heroic people who are based right here in the Virginia, Maryland area brought the lawsuit against Harvard and said, you have to stop limiting entry to Asian Americans. You are discriminating, and they won. They proved. So we do have people, we do have schools. People in my family are homeschooling. My grandchildren are being homeschooled, even though one of them, their dad is a teacher. He said, no, I will not send my kids to the public schools. I'm a teacher there, but I won't send my kids there because I'm only one teacher. The whole school system is corrupt. And so they come out of home. When I was a kid and people were homeschooling, they were odd people. They were unusual. And the kids finished homeschool and they were still odd. You could tell they weren't socialized much. It's not like that anymore. Now, the best students in America come out of homeschooling. They're in the top tier.
Right.
And most of them are Christian schools, and they're teaching them a curriculum that ties together the Hebrew Bible, the Old Testament, the Christian Bible, the New Testament, the Old and New Testament together with ancient philosophical teachings and beliefs and with biology. And it's amazing, the people who go through homeschool know the difference between a man and a woman.
Yep. That was a difficult one for the left to solve.
Yeah, we've got a Supreme Court justice who can't tell the difference.
Ketanji Jackson.
Yes.
Okay, so the good old days are gone, it seems, because I used H-1B, and a lot of my friends did too, and it seems like that pathway is closing down. In a way, it's kind of a little bit sad because I think a lot of conservatives in South Korea, they want to get out of their country because of the situation that they're facing.
Yeah, we have some very handsome young men and very beautiful young women here. You should come on a tourist visa and date a lot and get married. That pathway is still open. It's easy for me to sit here having been born in the United States and not having needed an H-1B visa. And I apologize I don't want to sound like I'm being insensitive.
That's great advice.
What's that?
That's great advice.
It is great advice. I like immigration. I would like to see more immigration. I don't want to see illegal immigration. The H-1B visa program was legal. It was very good, and it gave people a legal pathway. I suspect that you will see, especially in American politics, things go in waves. Sometimes they're almost perfect sine waves, and the intensity of the wave, diminishes over time. I think you'll see this wave will go for a while, and then it'll revert back toward the center. Once the program is no longer being abused, then I think people will say, you know what, this actually brought a lot of good people here. It would help if everybody who came here on an H-1B visa would vote Republican. That would help a great deal.
I think so.
Because as long as one party sees it as a way to import Democrat voters, they will be wary of it. As long as both parties see it as a way to import really talented, capable people who want to build America because this is what they've declared to be their second home, then both parties will be for it. And so when I think of immigration, I think of my grandfather. He was a Greek. He came here and he came here at age 19. And he didn't speak English and he didn't know much, but he knew fruits and vegetables, and he bought a little wooden cart, and he sold fruits and vegetables from a push cart on the streets of Brooklyn, New York. And after a little while, he made enough money to lease or rent a teeny tiny stall, you know how you see in some of those old cities, maybe about as wide as from me to you, just wide enough for a person to walk in and have shelves there. And he sold fruit and vegetables from there. And after a while, he really made it big, and he moved to New Jersey. And he built a candy store. And in that candy store, it was very nice. It was an elegant candy store. He had always been a chef. And we're now in the middle of World War I. It was a time when German Americans were hated and feared. And there was a girl in the neighborhood that had to walk through a neighborhood of Irish boys. And the girl was German American. Her parents didn't speak English. She spoke with an accent. She walked through this neighborhood. The Irish boys would throw rocks at her and call her, a dirty kraut or whatever they called the Germans. She would wait in the candy store for an hour every day until her older brother got out of school, and then he would walk her through that unsafe neighborhood. After a couple of years of this, when she graduated from high school, my grandfather had come to know this German woman, and I think most of you are guessing the end of the story. They got married, and that was my grandmother. And so even out of the hatred of war and the difficulty between peoples, a Greek immigrant and a German, she was born in Germany but came here as a 4-year-old. So two immigrants met each other, and they produced a family and a history and a legacy. So I think we will see that, and that if you're upset about anything in American policy, my advice is get involved in American politics, in American elections, because then your member of Congress will know, you know what? If I want to get somewhere in Fairfax County, I have to talk to my friend Harold Pion. And if Harold, some of you know Harold here, if Harold says you're a good guy, you have a chance of getting elected. We need every one of you with American citizenship already, to be the Harold Pion of your neighborhood. You need to be the one that says, listen to me, because I am bringing voters to you, and I will tell them to stay home if you don't listen to me.
Yeah. I think probably this might not have happened because under President Biden, is it reported 14 million illegal immigrants that came out, from the southern border, northern border, or at least 14 million. And I think the open border policy just completely, it was just horrendous for, we have angel moms who suffered so much. And I think the pendulum is swinging the other way right now.
That's right. It's the sine wave. The pendulum is swinging. Yeah. It'll swing back.
Yeah. So Mr. Makois, what made you so interested about South Korea? Was it President Trump's Truth Social? No, it was before that, because you wrote a column about it.
Yeah, I take credit for his Truth Social. I think, I'll tell you, my interest, since I was just telling my brother here, Prime Minister Han,
okay.
I was just telling him that I have been an anti-communist since childhood. Since I was 10 or 11 years old and first learned about communism. We were an unusual family. We had dinner together every night, and at dinner, we talked about politics and we talked about international affairs, although I come from a lower middle class family. My mother was a mother at home, and my stepfather was a milkman. He delivered the bottles of milk. We were not an Harvard-educated trust fund family, but we talked about communism. We talked about the fact that it was godless, that it would attack Christianity at every chance it got, that it would attack any kind of religious expression every chance it got. And we learned what communists did. For me, the Korean War was, it was something we discussed, even before Vietnam became a big issue in the United States, we were still talking about the Korean War. My wife's father was a Marine Corps fighter pilot in Korea. He's in his 90s now. When I told him that I was coming to speak with a group of Korean patriots, he said, please give them my love, please give them my regards. Thank you. And he said, I have watched Korea for 70 plus years. Please tell them, thank you for standing up and continuing to fight for your liberties. It makes me, a 90-something old man, feel good that I gave up years of my life and I risked my life for your liberty. It makes me feel good that you are still fighting for your liberty yourselves. I believe that wisdom comes from people who are aged, and I don't think you could have better wisdom than from a 93-year-old man. Thank you. I add my thanks to his. Thank you for standing up for your liberty. That's the origin of my interest in Korea. It's because you are fighting communism, and you're fighting it right in your own house now.
So, Mr. Makois, what's your thought about President Yoon's declaring martial law December 3rd of last year?
Yeah, when he did it, I didn't understand what he was doing or why. I had not been paying attention. Now that I see what's happening, now I understand. I did not know that the election was stolen. And I know President Trump has said he recognized the election as legitimate. I heard Ambassador Sands, I watched the video this morning, and I heard her say, yeah, he deals with the government that is in power. That's what a head of state, a head of government does. I believe that it was stolen. I've seen the same things that we saw in 2020. And in fact, the evidence is even stronger in many cases in the with the Korean ballots and some of the Korean things. So I wish that President Yoon had explained clearly and explicitly, immediately, why he was declaring martial law, and I wish that he had barred the parliament from going in and just voting to overturn him. I thought that that was a tactical error, and it led to his undoing, because if they could just go and overturn what he had done. But I mostly wish that those members of the opposition, or of his party, the opposition party in the parliament, I wish that they had voted together and not voted. There were a few members that voted with the Democratic Party. And if they had stuck together, I think that he would not have been impeached. I think they would not have been able to replace the Supreme Court, and I think he would still be out of jail and still be the president. There were some tactical errors. Now that I understand what he was doing, I wish he had succeeded.
So my initial instinct was, I thought when President Yoon declared martial law, that he had possibly had some kind of communication, not with President Biden back then, but with President-elect Donald Trump at that time. And many South Korean conservatives thought so as well. Can you kind of mention about that?
I don't know. If he did, I don't know. I'm not aware of it.
Okay. And I think in retrospect, how great would it have been if President Yoon waited out until President Trump comes into office until January 20th
Yes.
of this year, and then he comes over here and have the meeting instead of Lee Jae-myung, and
Yes.
talk about the global election fraud system that has been going on rampantly all over the world, not just in Korea, but Venezuela and all these Congo, all these Iraq, all these nations.
Yeah, and Venezuela is the heart of it,
Yes.
by the way. Venezuela is the heart of how they steal the elections and where the money is coming from. It's one of the richest countries in the world. They have more gold than any country in the world. They have more oil than almost any country in the world. And they're fabulously wealthy, and they're using that wealth for pure evil. But yes, had he done that, I think we would have seen a completely different outcome. And I wonder whether there was something that President Yoon knew. He hinted, he even said outright, the opposition is planning some sort of a coup, and I can't wait. It's an emergency. What he knew that I don't know, I still don't know. And maybe there was something, and maybe that's why they are keeping him in jail and keeping him away from people and keeping him and even his wife in jail, because they don't want him to be able to speak freely and say what he knows. They don't want him to be able to reach people and tell the truth. When I first heard that claims that the election was stolen, I withheld judgment. I wanted to be careful. But the thing that convinced me more than anything else was that the sitting government made it a crime to talk about it. When you institute political repression and prevent people from talking about whether or not the election was fair, that is proof positive that the election was stolen. Because if you won the election, then all the people are on your side. If all the people are on your side, you don't have to repress anything. The repression is proof that it was stolen. I hope I'm not getting people into trouble.
No, I think people are excited, you know. And so a couple nights ago, I actually talked with one of the person who was involved in uncovering all these truths about Venezuela being the headquarter of illegal election integrity issues happening all over the world, like 73 nations. And they have been involved in back from 20 years ago, including South Korea as well. And he confirmed to me, yeah, South Korea is voter fraud, no question about it. And that President Donald Trump already knows about all this, but probably it would be very difficult for him to just say, hey, you know, these things has been happening in South Korea or Iraq or Congo. What he said was the study is finished, the research is finished. I think DNI Director Tulsi Gabbard talked about it last month during the cabinet meeting about like you can even hack it and change the numbers.
Yes, you
tabulation. Do you think President Trump would ever talk about this publicly?
He will talk about it in America. I don't know whether he would talk about it in Korea, because he wants to be sure that he really, really knows about the fraud before he talks about it. It's a dangerous thing to talk about because it undermines the very nature of democracy. If you can call into question the validity of the electoral system, then suddenly you're left adrift and say, well, who really does have the right to lead us? So I would not advise you to wait for President Trump to take up that cause. I would advise you to continue to fight now in every possible legal way to fight, to prove it, and to show it and to document it. There are a group of people who are absolute heroes that have worked for 4 years to 4.5 years now, almost 5, to assemble the facts to prove that the American elections were stolen in 2020. There's a great website called Stolen Elections, elections with an S, stolenelectionsfacts.com. If you go there, you'll see documented how it was done in the United States and how it was done in a few other countries. It does not list Korea. I know the people.
I know what you mean. Yeah, you're right.
You've seen it.
I didn't see South Korea in that one because this is about the Smartmatic Dominion thing, right?
That's right.
And I think South Korea is using the Miro. It's a Korean system.
It's using the Miro system.
So it's a Miro system.
And I don't know. I believe that the Miro system uses Smartmatic software, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, when I saw that list, it wasn't there. But the individual who talked with me, he said that I think he also studied about South Korea election as well.
Okay.
And that's why he said so.
So that website is the sort of thing that Koreans need to be spending their time creating, and you have such unbelievably brilliant people that can work on this. And if you work with one another and coordinate with one another and bring bits of information together, and let me urge you as opponents of this Marxist regime, please be united with one another. Somebody posted on X a picture of me with the Prime Minister, And someone else who is from Korea, who's part of the opposition to Lee Jae-myung, said something critical of the People's Power Party, and it made me sad. I thought, look, you both oppose the Lee administration. Work together. Work out the differences. You have different parties for a reason, different ideas, different approaches, but come together on opposing an illegitimate regime and a regime that wants to repress you and take away your rights. I went to look for that post this morning and it's been deleted. So whoever it was thought better of it, and I thought that was a very hopeful sign. But please be united in your opposition to people trying to take away your liberty.
I think a lot of Korean Americans here in our audience and from all over the states came over here because they're passionate, but also I think it's because of desperation.
Yeah.
If you look at South Korea, the judiciary system, I think that the judiciary system is so compromised that if that system, like here, United States Supreme Court has a final say. Even the president has to listen to the U.S. Supreme Court. But in South Korea, that is so aligned with the left-wing party that they feel that there's no hope. They exhausted all the options. So the only way out of here is the help of United States, because United States helped South Korea on and on again, liberated from Japan, North Korea, and China. So I think they see this as a parallel situation. Do you see that sentiment?
I understand that, and I've been thinking about that for quite a while now, and I have something to say to the Korean Americans here and to the American friends of Korea here. I work in local politics. A lot of people say, why are you doing that? You should be doing things more important. There is nothing more important than local politics, because the schools your children attend, the schools where your children's friends go, even if you send your kids to a private school or you're homeschooling, their friends go to schools that are run by school boards that are elected by local voters. The taxes that you pay on your car, on your home, on everything that go to support leftist ideas are imposed on you by leftist board of supervisor people, by leftist school board members, by leftist House of Delegate members and state senators, people that nobody has ever heard of. They're the ones that have more impact on your lives. And I want you to know that Korean Americans don't vote every single election. They vote in presidential elections, and they don't always vote for Republicans. Many of them have been voting for Democrats for decades, and I want you to stop. I'm begging you to stop, because every Democrat politician that you elect here is going to be a vote to cement the Lee Jae-myung regime. Every single one. Every member of Congress will vote to support the leftist government anywhere in the world. We need you to vote 100% of the time. In the state of Virginia, how many of you can vote? How many of you can live? Okay, we need every one of you to go, what's today, Saturday? So Monday, we need you to go to Fairfax County Government Center and vote. Early voting is going on right now for House of Delegates, for governor, lieutenant governor, and attorney general. These people will affect your lives, and we need you to get involved. We need you to volunteer. We need you to ask, can I call other people? We need people to make phone calls and who can speak Korean and explain to people, you have to do this. If you care about South Korea, vote for the candidates that will support liberty. If you don't, then we're whistling into the wind and nobody will hear us. You have to have people in office here that care about liberty. Thank you. I was hoping you wouldn't get mad at me for saying that.
No, nobody will get mad at you. That's great advice. That's really great advice. I think if we have to vote Republican here in order to help the conservative cause in South Korea, it
That's
makes sense.
exactly right.
It's logical. And somebody told me to please ask you this question, and me too, personally. There's a senator named Kim Jun-hyung, so he's very anti-America. Very anti-America. He is in the far left party named 조국 혁신당, and he has been spewing anti-Trump rhetoric all the time. He bashes Laura Loomer, Gordon Chang, Morris Tan, all the ones who align with President Trump. But if you look at his
My feelings are hurt if he hasn't attacked me yet.
You should wait. It's gonna come, I think. So his kids, he has 2 sons and 1 daughter. They're all naturalized here in the States. So they come here, and I think they spew out all these anti-American ideology here in the States. What say you?
I would like to see their citizenship revoked and their visas revoked and send them back. That nothing bothers me more. We have people from Al-Qaeda, from Hamas, and their kids are here going to American colleges, or they're in London going to English universities. We have no use for that here. And it's typical of the hypocrisy. They preach Marxism and they preach communism, and they live like kings. The czars of Russia didn't see some of the wealth that some of the communists now have, and they need to be exposed and called out and shamed. They should be shamed for this. Every day they should be shamed. If America is so bad, why are your kids here? Now he will attack me.
I will. I think they will. He will. And that is possible, right? Because you're supposed to pledge allegiance to the nation once
That's
you get
right.
the citizenship. But if they act in a treasonous way, they can lose their
That's
citizenship.
right. That's right. So let's hope it happens.
Okay, let's all give a big round of applause.
Can I say
to Ms. Michael.
one more
Yeah.
thing? One more
Go ahead,
thing.
sir. I was about to ask you.
I would like to see there is another way that people from South Korea can have an influence here, and that is to build direct investments here in the United States. There are companies, privately owned companies, that have billions of dollars. And you know what's going to happen to that money? Lee Jae-myung is going to take it. He's going to nationalize your industry. He's going to take your money away, and he will give it to North Korea or give it to his buddies, and you will not have it. Invest the money here. Bring factories here. President Trump is opening the door. Anybody who would like to do that, just reach out to me or to Ambassador Sands or to any of our group. We will help you. We will hold your hand. We will guide you through the process. We will get you White House help in overcoming the horrible regulations that we have in America. You point out a regulatory barrier. President Trump loves to hear about it and say, let's erase that barrier. Let's bring the investment here. And you also need a stronger presence here in Washington. And I'm not talking about lobbyists. Don't go hiring lobbyists. If you hire a lobbyist, you got to remember, the first allegiance of that lobbyist is to his political patron. Maybe he's a former chief of staff or a former cabinet member, to a senator or to a president. His first allegiance is to that senator or to that former president, not to you. And he will do this much, but not everything. You need to have some kind of presence here that is interested in a strong Korea-America friendship that focuses on policy, on business, on investment, on everything. You have a few things that are feel-good, cultural exchange programs and so forth. You need something that's more muscular, more robust. And then we can make it true what MacArthur said and what I've heard so many people say so many times. We go together. Say it with me.
We go together. Well,
thank you.
I'm super energized by our conversation, Mr. Marcoy. So let's give him a big round of applause.
부탁드리겠습니다. Thank you, Mr. Marcoy. Thank you, reporter.
Thank you. Thank you all.
For your time, for your insightful words.